L'Shana Tova, everyone. A happy, healthy, sweet new year. I'm going to open for a moment and ask a question. If you could observe only first day Rosh Hashanah or second day, you can only observe one, which one would you choose? Think about it. Now, to be clear, I'm asking this question not because second day Rosh Hashanah, we all appreciate how much easier it is to get good seats here in the sanctuary. But for me, theologically, if I were to have to choose, I would choose second day Rosh Hashanah. And I would make this choice every time because I theologically prefer the second day of Rosh Hashanah over the first day. And that's because on the second day, we read the story of the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. And I think many of you know that Roseanne and ours one-year-old grandson is named Isaac. And I'm particularly proud that my son Simon, my daughter-in-law Miriam, bestowed the name Isaac. Because our Torah describes for us Isaac is the second of the three patriarchs of our tradition. And while Isaac seemingly figures prominently in the stories of Genesis, he also seems to take on a subordinate role to his father Abraham and to his son Jacob. If you read the Torah carefully, there's two significant incidents in Isaac's life: the Akedah, which we read today, the binding of Isaac, and the blessing of his sons. And Isaac isn't even the central figure of those two stories. So it's common for rabbinic commentators to note that Isaac's personality is the least clearly defined of the three patriarchs. And many rabbis argue Isaac is primarily the bridge between Abraham and Jacob. So these rabbis would argue Isaac is seemingly just an essential link between his father Abraham and his son Jacob in the chain of patriarchal greatness. But I take exception to that. I theologically perceive Isaac as the more fabulous patriarch, not just because my grandson's named Isaac, but I believe that he's more fabulous when compared to Abraham and Jacob. If you read Genesis carefully, Isaac takes on only one partner, one wife, Rebekah. He only fathers children with this one wife, Rebekah, Jacob and Esau. Isaac, also of the three patriarchs, never needs to have his name changed. His father was Avram until his spiritual growth resulted in his becoming Abraham. His son was Yaakov until his son's spiritual growth resulted in his becoming Yisrael. Isaac, Yitzhak, was born with his one name and remained in his correct spiritual place always. And what I feel is the most crucial fact when you look at our patriarchs, Isaac is the only one of our three patriarchs who never leaves the promised land. Abraham was born in Ur. After God sends him to Eretz Israel, to the promised land, soon after, Abraham leaves for Egypt because of a famine. Jacob was born in Israel, but because of the tensions between him and his twin brother Esau, Jacob returns to his mother's native land. And ultimately, Jacob dies in Egypt. But Isaac spends his entire life in the land of Israel. Isaac understood the warning, don't leave the promised land. Abraham, who did this, who failed at this, warns Isaac, no matter the hardships, don't leave. And later in Isaac's life, when, like his father, famine confronted him, he chose not to leave. And God looked at Isaac, and we read in Breshit, in Genesis, Sefer Breshit, I will be with you, Isaac, and I will bless you. Isaac didn't leave. If you will, Abraham and Jacob reflect the wandering Jew tradition that has characterized so much of our history. But Isaac is the Jew who would not wander from place to place. Isaac would always call Israel his home. When I look at Yitzhak, when I look at Isaac, I see the role model for what it is to be a Zionist today. Isaac stayed in Israel no matter the hardships. He helped to establish the invulnerable roots of our Jewish residency in Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. Isaac lived out a life of unshakable commitment. Confronting famine, I still support Israel. Confronting hardships, I still support Israel. Even when his wife Rebekah is barren, Isaac refuses to do like his father. He refuses to have a child with another woman. I am loyal. I am committed. That's our patriarch Isaac. Loyal and committed to his spouse, to his family, to his land, to his God. Unwavering. Isaac remains Isaac. Isaac's stability and consistency of character are always firmly anchored in place no matter the circumstances. And that's the reason of the patriarchs, Isaac is the one that I respect the most. I believe Isaac would choose second day Rosh Hashanah. And I think Isaac would recognize there's really, really good reasons not to attend. Right? Isaac, I think, would acknowledge one day is enough. Right? I'll be back so soon after Yom Kippur. But I believe Isaac, he would then think about his fellow Jews. He would consider the need for a commitment to Jewish unity. Isaac would think to himself, I can't be the missing piece in the Jewish communal puzzle. And I do want to acknowledge everyone here today, everyone watching online now, made the same decision. We would say to our family and friends, you have excellent, valid reasons why you can't observe the second day of Rosh Hashanah. We understand, we really do. There really could be a hardship to miss a day of work. The local schools are open. Vacation time is tight. But those of us who could, we think to ourselves, I need to be like Isaac. I'm going to choose to stay away that extra day from work or school, even though it's hard. We think perhaps even if I'm not necessarily such a ritually observant Jew, attending second day Rosh Hashanah brings me to support my fellow Jews who might be more ritually observant. The priority we hold is Jewish unity. Our choosing to be like Isaac really makes me think differently about how I wanted to sermonically address those who are gathered. Roseanne and I, we start discussing high holiday topics, and I said to her, I really think I need to talk about Israel. And her words, and I didn't show you this ahead of time, Roseanne, so her words to me were, you'd be preaching to the choir. But I believe that our loyal, our committed patriarch, Isaac, created this choir to which we belong. The purpose of this choir is to inspire people further. I said to Alexandra as we were sitting here, We do have less people than yesterday, but the voices seemed even stronger than yesterday. The choir was in place. So I'm going to preach to the choir. I'm going to preach on Israel. I'm going to preach to the choir because we are loyal and committed, even when it is difficult. And I know I don't need to persuade us to be unwavering, unapologetic Zionists. But instead, I hope to help us, the choir, be better ambassadors for Zionism. Many people think ideas matter more than behaviors. But our Judaism teaches us that our behavior is what matters the most. Action is what creates transformation. When we consider why we unwaveringly support Israel, we have to take the time. We need to address anti-Semitism. Some individuals argue they're not anti-Semitic, they're only anti-Zionist. But everyone here today knows that in European capitals where the destruction of the Jews was nearly total, anti-Semitism still thrives. Each of us knows that in places where no Jews have ever lived, residents of those places believe the word Jew is a synonym for devil. So when people assert they're not anti-Semitic, they're only anti-Zionist, we can quickly discover the truth. Imagine if Israel's conduct is perfect. Perfect. All Israeli Jews are angels. The two-state solution for Israel and Palestinians, God willing, should become a reality. Would the scourge of anti-Semitism disappear? Would the avowed anti-Zionist now say, okay, now I love you, I support you? Of course not. Anti-Semites hate Jews. Christian anti-Semites hate us because they accuse us, the blood libel, of killing Christ. Enlightened anti-Semites hate us because we're different and they want us to be like them. Racist anti-Semites hate us because they say we belong to another species. We pollute their superior species. And the anti-Zionist, who is always an anti-Semite, the anti-Zionist hates us because their new blood libel is that the only Jewish state in existence is an evil, illegitimate, murderous state. The anti-Zionist, who is always an anti-Semite, denies historical Jewish connections to the land of Israel. The anti-Zionist, who is always an anti-Semite, says, you Jews don't need self-autonomy. You Jews don't need a safe haven for other Jews. You Jews don't need protection from people like us, even though we've tried to attack, destroy, and murder you throughout history. Zionism is derived from the word Zion. It refers to the biblical land of Israel. In the late 19th century, Zionism emerged as a political movement. The political goal to reestablish a Jewish state in Israel, the ancestral homeland of the Jewish people. Today, Zionism refers to always supporting the continued existence of the Jewish state, to always support Israel while confronting the regular hateful calls for Israel's destruction. Anti-Zionism is in opposition to Jews having a Jewish state in our ancestral homeland. Anti-Zionism denies the Jewish people our right to self-determination. The anti-Zionist is an anti-Semite because they believe that the Jews alone among all the peoples of the world don't have a right to self-determination. Anti-Zionists are anti-Semitic because they believe the Jewish people's religious and historical connection to Israel is invalid, or they'll say it's inherently racist. Anti-Zionists are anti-Semitic because when in response to the actions of the state of Israel, Jews throughout the world are verbally and physically harassed. When in response to the actions of the state of Israel, Jewish institutions, synagogues are vandalized. This is anti-Semitism. When anti-Zionists criticize Israel using ideas about Jewish power or greed, utilize Holocaust denial, invert history, and assert that the Jewish Israeli is the new Nazi, this is anti-Semitism. And let's turn for a moment. Let's see how the anti-Zionist exploits this specific perversion of history. In August, the Palestinian Authority president, Mahmoud Abbas, during an official visit to Berlin, he gave a joint press conference with the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz. Abbas was asked by a journalist if he would apologize for the murder of Israeli athletes by Palestinian terrorists at the 1972 Munich Olympics. Abbas responded by ranting about 50 Holocausts perpetrated by Israel against Palestinians. And if you watch the footage of this interaction, the horror was the German chancellor's lack of response. After this rant, he shook Abbas's hand and ended the press conference. Now, to be fair, there was an eruption of fury. So the chancellor eventually releases a statement. The words were right. I am disgusted by the outrageous remarks made by the Palestinian president, Mahmoud Abbas. For us Germans in particular, any trivialization of the singularity of the Holocaust is intolerable and unacceptable. I condemn any attempt to deny the crimes of the Holocaust. Those were his words. They came very late. Here's the reality. The Palestinian president, Mahmoud Abbas, not the leader of Hamas, not the leader of Hezbollah, but the leader of the so-called moderate Palestinian Authority. Abbas wrote his doctoral thesis at a Soviet university blaming Zionists for the Holocaust. Holocaust denial was his doctorate. And these notions of Holocaust denial, Abbas has reiterated publicly over the years. Abbas is an anti-Zionist. An anti-Zionist who has asserted over and over again, Israel as a colonialist project has nothing to do with Judaism. Abbas, anti-Zionists like him, I think we have to look at them and say, isn't it time to stop pretending and find the ones we need to speak with? The anti-Zionist is anti-Semitic because this person doesn't call for a two-state solution, by which both Jew and Palestinians meaningfully need to compromise for secure and peaceful borders. Instead, the anti-Zionists call for a Palestinian nation state, while simultaneously advocating for an end to the Jewish nation state. Now, I want to be explicit. Mere criticism of Israel is not anti-Semitism. The most critical Zionists are the Israeli Jews who live in Israel. Criticism is not anti-Semitism. But if criticism of Israel applies double standards, not applied to other nations, That's anti-Semitic. Why is the boycott, divestment, and sanctions of BDS movement anti-Semitic? Because their founder, Omar Barghouti, and the entire central leadership of BDS all call for the elimination of Israel as a Jewish state. Every one of them. The BDS movement operates under the guise of social justice, Palestinian rights. But the end goal of the BDS movement is to undermine and eliminate Jewish rights. BDS supports anti-normalization. BDS seeks to make taboo any cooperation between Israelis and Arabs. BDS on colleges urge people who see themselves as allies of the Palestinian cause to marginalize Jewish students unless they preemptively disavow Zionism. I studied Judaism with a university student this summer. She loves her Judaism. She loves Eretz Israel. But she told me that she has to hide this love from other college students for fear of ostracization. And she said her fellow Jewish students who love Judaism in Israel, they have to do the same. Imagine this. In 2022, our Jewish children, our Jewish grandchildren at premier universities throughout our country feel that they have to hide their love of Judaism and their love of Israel. 70 Harvard faculty members responded to their elite college's newspaper, The Crimson, for its endorsement of the anti-Semitic movement to boycott Israel. And these faculty members, including former Treasury Secretary and Harvard President Larry Summers, they wrote in their letter, "We extend our full support to students who may now be feeling marginalized and demoralized." This letter was required because of a historic spike in anti-Semitic incidents at Harvard and other prominent U.S. colleges. And often, this was fueled by the BDS movement and its backers on campus. So these faculty members at Harvard, knowing that the BDS movement is anti-Semitic and fuels hatred of Jews, they wrote, "We believe that many well-meaning people with no hate in their hearts, including those at Harvard, gravitate to this BDS movement, believing that it offers a means for advancing Palestinian rights and peace in the Middle East." And then they, a little bit later, wrote, "But the reality is the BDS movement merely coerces the discourse on campus and contributes to anti-Semitism. In seeking to delegitimize Israel through diplomatic, economic, academic, and cultural isolation, and by opposing the very notions of Jewish peoplehood and self-determination, BDS is disrespectful of all Jews, the vast majority of whom view an attachment to Israel as central to their faith identity." These 70 faculty members, they further noted that the Crimson is responsible for creating an unsafe environment for Jewish and pro-Israel students at Harvard. So I'm preaching to the choir. But we all need to be like our loyal, committed, and unwavering patriarch, Isaac. Isaac's stability, his consistency of character, are always firmly anchored in place, no matter the circumstances. We need to do the same. Temple Sholom has joined a new ADL initiative. It's called Kulanu, Synagogues in Action Against Anti-Semitism. I want us, this choir, to join in this new initiative. Let's remember, it's not our ideas, it's our behaviors that count the most. So I am asking, join me in becoming an Israel advocate. Write and meet with elected officials. Submit letters to daily newspapers. Know Really know your Israel facts and Zionist history. Be willing to share on social media well-researched insights on Israel. And please pay attention to that, well-researched insights on Israel. Become active as university alumni. Work on assuring that your alma mater is protecting Jewish students. Make sure as alumni that they are fostering an environment where all their Jewish university students will be able to proactively live out their love of Judaism and Israel. Visit Israel soon. Encourage your children, your grandchildren to do the same. Make sure your children and grandchildren from the age of 18 to 32 take advantage of one of the greatest programs invented, the 10-day free birthright trip to Israel, which we are proud supporters. Attend Israel-oriented educational and cultural programs. Get your family and friends to join you. Engage more with our local and national Jewish organizations that support our Zionist agenda. And there is so much more. And I will happily meet with anyone to discuss the possibilities. I am preaching to the choir. But like Isaac, our patriarch, we can't ever distance ourselves from Israel, no matter the hardships. So in a moment, I'm going to conclude my preaching to the choir. I'm going to let us rise. We're going to conclude our services today with singing Israel's anthem of hope, Hatikva, before Lashana Tova. But when we sing our anthem of hope, Hatikva, I want us to think about our Israeli brothers and sisters who live too often in harm's way and need to know that we are standing with them. Hatikva evokes gratitude and appreciation for Israel, especially for the fallen soldiers and victims of terrorism who gave their lives for the dream of the Jewish homeland. Let's sing Israel's national anthem of hope, Hatikva, and hear the spiritual charge God gave our people and that Isaac never failed to abide. Our hope to be a free nation in our land, the land of Zion and Jerusalem. And as we sing these sacred words of hope, I want you to think about the Israeli who must struggle daily with their fears and anxieties. I want us to think about the stories of Israeli survivors of terrorism whose continued hope is to live and raise their children in Israel peacefully. Let me just provide a few expressions of their hope, their Hatikva. Shoshi's life was changed forever by a terrorist bullet, severed her spine. This is what she wrote. I hope that maybe Christopher Reeve's people will find some cure. Hatikva. Alad is an Ethiopian Israeli. He was paralyzed in 2002 by a suicide bomber. He wrote how he and others he knows who are confined to wheelchairs, all they want to do is maintain their optimism and hope. Hatikva. Ronit suffered brain injuries in a bus bombing. She shared, I am willing to suffer because I want brothers and sisters for my child. She wrote, I look forward with hope. Hatikva. Avi, in his 60s, survived a deadly bus bomb. He shared that since this experience, he has tried to see in everything a half glass full. He wants to be optimistic, cheerful, full of hope. Hatikva. Yafit, she was murdered by terrorists. But before her death, she miraculously saved her husband and 2 young daughters. Her mother shared recently, the pain, of course, is always here. It's like a hole that cannot close. But together with pain and hardship, there's light at the end of the tunnel. There is hope. Hatikva. And finally, Kobi Mandel. He was just 13 years old. He was a citizen of both the United States and Israel. Kobi lived in and attended school in the Israeli settlement of Tekoa, Gush Etzion, near the West Bank, located by a Palestinian town of the same name. On May 8th, 2001, Kobi and a friend skipped school. They went hiking in the Judean desert surrounding their village. At first, their parents didn't worry about the boys. They believed that they had gone to school and then went to Yerushalayim, to Jerusalem. But the parents informed the authorities when the boys didn't come home by midnight. The boys, bound, stabbed, and beaten bodies were discovered the following day in a cave near the West Bank settlement where they lived. Kobi's parents, Sherry and Seth, they determined not to let their lives be ruled by hate. They established, and many of you may know it, the Kobi Mandel Foundation, a foundation to help other bereaved families keep their hearts open, their spirits alive, and return to a life with strength and hope. Hatikva. The Talmudic sage Rabbi Yochanan taught, as long as there is life, there is hope. Hope has sustained the Jewish people through unspeakable difficulties. Let's think how it is that we can be like Isaac and rise for our Israel anthem of hope. Sing together as a choir, Hatikva.
Before we sing, I just want to share what I think about when I sing Hatikva, if it's okay. But before that, I just want to thank you for that very beautiful and very powerful sermon. I've been singing Hatikva my whole life. As a child in the United States, you guys don't know me very well. As a child, my family lived in the United States, and I attended Jewish day school. We sang it every morning in the classroom. And then we made Aliyah when I was 9, and sang it again every day in school. When I sing Hatikva, I see myself as a child, and then as a young adult, and then as a soldier in the army, singing Hatikva over and over again in all these various situations. I come from a family of staunch Zionists. Both my parents made Aliyah as young people, as teenagers essentially, and it was important to them that my siblings and I would be raised in Israel. And they remain Zionists to this day, despite many difficult moments, including when I was in 5th grade. My older sibling was out shopping for a Purim costume with her friends, and it was the early 2000s or it must have been the late 90s in Jerusalem, and there was one of the most famous bombings, and my sister was caught in the bombing and hospitalized. And we remained, one of her friends moved back to the States. We remained in Israel after that, and we were raised there, and most of my family lives there to this day. And I think it's very special that Israel's anthem isn't an anthem that talks about look how great our country is, as so many national anthems are. They're stories of glory. Israel's anthem is forward-looking. It's a hopeful anthem. And when I think about the hope in my heart for freedom, I think about freedom from that shadow of danger that the children that I see when I go visit my cousins and my friends and their children now will not hide in bomb shelters the way we did, and will not know that panicked phone call when there's been a bombing and you're calling everyone you know to make sure they're still alive. I don't want children to know that. I don't want children on the other side, Palestinians in Gaza and the West Bank, to know that horror either. And the hope that I'm thinking of when I sing Hatikva is the hope that no one in the region will live in the shadow of danger, in the shadow of fear, and the hope that we can, as a nation, realize what I believe is our true and honest fate in the world, which is, as God said, to be a light, a beacon of light unto the nations, to show the nations what it is to be a true and just person, and to show the way, like a lighthouse, just sending out a beacon. And yeah, I would say my Zionism is to call out anti-Semitism, as you said, and also, like you said, most Israelis are very critical of their own government. I am not innocent. I am also very critical, and to call out injustices where I see them everywhere, and to say, this is not right. We have the capacity to be, and we must be better. Even though it's true that if we were the most perfect in the world, there would still be people hating us. We must strive to be better so we can be free also to realize our potential as the beacon that God intended us to be. So, yeah. Hatikva is a kind of a prayer. It's a prayer for freedom, it's a prayer for liberation, it's a prayer to realize our full potential, and it's a prayer for everything that we know that the state of Israel could be, and can be, and will be. Yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Be a new year of hope, joy, of sweetness, happiness, and health. L'shana tova.